My name is Hans Venable, and as I understand it, I'm kicking off a series called Queer Faith Stories that will be told during the month of June. So let's start by defining the term queer. According to the dictionary I got when I started college in 1981, queer means strange, odd. And I'm not exactly sure why we're focusing on strange, odd faith stories, but I will do my best to kick this off with a strange, odd faith story. Well, perhaps the faith stories that you hear in this series might be somewhat strange or odd because they're based on life experiences that might be different from yours. But the term queer used in the series actually refers to faith stories from people who identify from the LGBTQ community. If you're from my generation, the term queer was a derogatory term that was used to demean people, inferring that someone is gay, which obviously is a thing that you don't want to be. As most of you probably know, these days the term queer has been embraced by much of the LGBTQ community to use as a positive term to refer to anyone that falls within the LGBTQ community. But I have to confess that I find it difficult to use the word queer based on my personal life experience. Okay. To kick off this queer faith story, I'll start with a confession. I am a gay man. I don't know why I have so much difficulty saying that without crying. I'm over 60 years old, and it is not a secret that I am a gay man in this church, and have been in a relationship with my husband, David Stahl, for over 42 years. 32 years ago, my being gay and being in a relationship with David was a secret in this church that we shared with the pastor and a few select people, as the pastor encouraged us to do. And eventually, because I was ordained as a deacon and I'm gay, there was a minor statewide Baptist church scandal. But during Pride service last August, David and I recounted much of our coming out story and how we were embraced and affirmed by this church decades ago. That queer faith story includes many of you and is available online on YouTube. But the unfortunate truth is, in many ways, I still have a closet that I live in. There are still scars from the past that create fear in me that keep me in the closet. I'm sure most of you know that the closet for LGBTQ folks refers to an imaginary room that we build around ourselves to hide our LGBTQ identities in so that we blend in. In a world that tells us that we are not normal, a world that still tells boys that they shouldn't play with dolls and girls that they shouldn't play with trucks. In a world in which a wealthy white man is given the privilege of telling women that the only goal they should really aspire to is to find a husband and to have babies and raise children. A world that continues to call LGBTQ folks perverts for having the feelings that we have or wanting to appear or act in a way that doesn't conform to socially accepted norms for our gender. A world that wants to narrowly define gender roles with one set for men and one set for women and denies that there may be anything else. A world that wants to hide LGBTQ folks from their children. The closet is often very small with thick walls. Or in my case, it can be big and have a relatively open doors. Or it can be somewhere in between. It's there to protect us from family members and friends and co-workers and church members, as well as strangers who will reject us or who we fear might reject us if they know our identities. The closet can be full of white lies or outright lies. It can be extremely isolating and lonely. For me, the closet is a place of comfort to protect me from unpleasant encounters. Now, closets aren't only for LGBTQ folks. Many of you might have closets of your own. Your closet might be related to mental health issue, or addiction, or marital or health issues. It might be related to your faith, or maybe the fact that you're a member of a Baptist church. While I believe that God was with me in the closet, I believe that God wants me, to be out of the closet. I believe God nudged me out of the closet so that we could begin an authentic queer faith journey within the walls of this church and beyond. We were lucky in this faith community of believers that we were embraced and affirmed and extended that love and grace to all of our LGBTQ siblings. Not everyone is that lucky. God led us to share our queer faith story from our experience here with numerous queer ministers from the Dallas area who had no church family where they could be authentic. They began to share their faith stories, and many of those stories began to take on new directions. It's not a secret that many LGBTQ folks have suffered and continue to suffer at the hands of many churches. The church should be a sanctuary for queer people. It needs to be a place of healing. It needs to be a place where closet doors can swing wide open. I pledge to do my best to keep my closet doors as open as possible so that I can serve as a model for what it means to be a queer person of faith. One of the traditions of this church is that new deacon candidates give a testimony as part of the deacon election process, and I've always loved the diversity of those testimonies and the life experiences and faith journeys that are shared there. I remember being struck about 20 or 30 years ago when a new deacon candidate spoke very openly about his struggles as a gay man. I remember thinking, wow, what a change. How refreshing it is to hear a queer story of faith in the church as if it's not strange or odd. I thank God for University Baptist Church and each of you who have been and continue to be part of my strange, odd faith story. And I look forward to hearing more queer faith stories.